Please introduce yourself.
John Geesman on behalf of the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility. This is a little bit off topic, but I wanted to follow up on Dr. Budnitz's very informative briefing last night with respect to probabilistic risk assessment. And as some of you know, during an extended period when I was trying to avoid the practice of law, I was an investment banker. And during that almost 20 years, I became pretty well acquainted with a couple of guys that had set up insurance companies. One capitalized by General Electric, the other by AIG. And I got a sense as to the business model for insurance in terms of trying to define a calculable risk that you could explain to investors was not a particularly large risk, and then be able to charge an acceptable premium for absorbing what you consider to be not that large a risk. And I was thinking when reflecting on what you said last night, Dr. Budnitz, it would seem to me a viable opportunity, and I think it's probably one that has passed you and I by, just from an age standpoint, but a viable business opportunity to attempt to absorb some portion of what now seems an uninsurable risk about core melt that you could take off of the backs of governments that are currently implicitly absorbing that risk. In this country, Price Anderson receives a lot of attention, but in the UK or France or perhaps even India with the developing industry, and I was wondering if you've been involved in that kind of discussion over the years and why that business model doesn't seem to have taken off anywhere.
Just a brief response. There have been a series over the years of meetings in which the reactor PRA crowd these are public meetings, including conferences, have interacted with the insurance industry. And I once attended one of those a long time ago. But nobody on the insurance industry side thought that the analyses were reliable enough for them to rely on in their business planning, is what I recall, and I think that probably remains the case. But it's been some time since I myself interacted with that. On the other hand, we kind of know what the outcome is, which that it's not used for that, as best I can tell. So that sort of speaks for itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe just another thought that the Price Anderson clearly is an external cost that's not passed through to consumers.
No, it's the taxpayers rather than consumers.
Well, as I said, it's an external cost
Yeah,
because it's
right.
not passed through to the consumers, and all of our energy technologies in one dimension or another have some external cost.
That's fair, right.
So we just need to try to make sure that those external costs are kept acceptably low,
Right.
which in the case of nuclear power means we really have to be rigorous to make sure we minimize the probability of having serious accidents.
And the consequences.
Thank you. Next speaker from the public.
Yes, Rochelle Becker, Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility. I, too, listened carefully to Dr. Budnitz speak yesterday about the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's rules and regulations and how they were inadequate. And also, I believe I heard Mr. Rathy say that the committee should start or at least sign on to be part of the safety proceedings that are currently happening at the Public Utilities Commission. There's a real problem with addressing safety at the Public Utilities Commission in that we are often reminded that we are preempted from addressing safety at the Public Utilities Commission. But as we've said often and repeatedly, safety costs money. And whether or not we're going to be investing going forward on the reliance of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that things are safe at Diablo Canyon might be questionable. We certainly invested a great deal of money in steam generators at San Onofre with the rubber stamp of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that everything was just fine. Granted, the plant closed safely. It closed very expensively and continues to be very controversial. We don't want to see that happen in PG&E service territory. Plants are closing across this country because safety is too expensive. To continue to keep these plants updated and safe are causing cost overruns that the owners of these utilities cannot afford. In California, we continue to pass these costs on to ratepayers, whether they're affordable or not, using the excuse that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission says they're safe. There's a whole lot of confusion and people saying the same things in different ways. That's not very reassuring to the public. Not the public as whether or not this plant is safe, and not the ratepayers as to whether or not this plant is cost effective. And somehow, when Dr. Budnitz is presenting a topic very dynamically, and continues to repeat himself saying that NRC rules and regulations are inadequate, I believe it behooves this committee, who was put in place to be able to talk about safety, to let the people who put them in place know that you think that the NRC rules and regulations are inadequate. Thank you.